imagine you're running a race and in between that you decided to slow down a little. Yet, instead of losing out on the leaderboard, you are still climbing it. This is exactly what has happened with Indian Passport in 2026, where Indian Passport has lost access to 2 countries, yet it has climbed 10 positions in Henley Passport Index. And today we will be talking about this very global mobility paradox, how it is calculated and how it has happened for India. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand this mobility paradox in front of India, where it has risen 10 positions in terms of Henley Passport Index, but it has happened when it has lost access to 2 countries. So let us begin with understanding that what exactly has happened. So if we are talking over the years, as you can see in the given diagram, that over the years we have remained somewhere in the lines of 70 to 75, but in recent times, that from 2014 and especially up and until last year, we have seen a huge dip. But 2026 marks a final rise where we have climbed up to 75th position. Now we are coming from 85th to 75th position. And the further good news present here is that if you talk about Jan 2026, this position was not only 75th, it was in between 80. And it has made this jump in this very last month itself. But the problem here is when we are talking about the last year, we had access in terms of Indian Passport had access to 57 countries. However, this year, in the start of 2026, it dropped to 55. But how exactly this has unfolded, that is what we will be looking into. So, if we want to understand how this paradox has unfolded, the first thing that we have to establish here is the fact that when we are talking about rankings, they are relative, they are not absolute in any terms. Now, before we move towards more understanding, first we have to start from the fact that what exactly is Henley Passport Index. So when we are talking about this particular index, it basically helps in understanding that how much access a particular passport holds. That means how much power, how much security is associated with that nation. Now this particular index is published by Henley and Partners, and in this index we compare 199 passports, that means passports of the countries, and these passports are checked in terms of access, as I mentioned. So access would be to a specific destination, and these destinations are 227 in number. Now this index uses a data from a proper authority, that is International Air Transport Association, and that is what gives us a purview into the global mobility power. Now how does this indexing or the point system work here? Basically, the scoring system is fixated on 1 point for each destination. So, if you have a destination which allows visa-free entry or visa or arrival, or it has border permits, or you are simply in ETA, that means no embassy level approval is required. In that context, in either of these situations, in that context, you get plus 1 point. If you need a visa, if your passport needs visa before traveling, then you will not get any points at all. So when we are talking about the score is generated based on the number of points. And when we are talking about countries which have same number of points, which is a fair possibility in terms of score, they are allowed to share the rank. So when we are talking about this whole system, in this we have seen that India has climbed up from 85th rank to 75th rank. That means India has got more points, better points, but how has this happened when India has lost 2 countries? That means -2, yet improvement in rankings. That you have to associate with the race example with which I started in the first. Now, we need to add another dimension before we go back to the example and finally solve this, is the fact which countries' access we have lost and why. So the first one here is Iran. Iran suspended our visa on arrival in November 2025 because of reasons such as frauds and kidnappings, and we have also seen Bolivia where we have lost access because earlier we had visa on arrival, now it has become pre-approved e-visa requirement. So both of these countries went out of the access point. But we had one addition here, and this addition happened in 2026. That was Gambia. So if you look at the numbers, last year we were at 57, then it fell to 55, and then last month only we had one another addition, and now we have 56 destinations where we can go with visa on arrival itself. Now finally, detangling the puzzle that was in front of us is the fact that how India climbed the rankings. So as I said, let's take an example of the race with which we started. So if you are running in the race and let's just say you decided to slow your speed. In that context, I was just talking about you. But even though you have slowed your speed, let's just say there were other rivals, competitors in this race which were probably injured or they slowed even more than you. So that means you will be climbing rankings even though you have slowed down a little bit. And that is exactly what has happened with India. Because when we talk about this index, it is a very competitive leaderboard and your rank is very much dependent on not just your score but also the scores of other country. So even though our access was restricted to 2 countries, there were several other countries which lost more access and lost more points. That is why our relative standing improved and absolute score slightly declined. As I mentioned, the new addition was Gambia, and the offset we saw in terms of 57 to 55, that was done +1 by access to this particular country. Now we have an answer to the final fact that what exactly happened here. But now we will be moving towards understanding that why it is so important. Why are we talking about this passport index? What is the significance of this particular ranking? So when we are talking about this ranking, the first thing that you have to understand, when we get a number here, a score here, it gives us a signal of what kind of global trust and diplomatic strength that particular country has. That means higher rank, more countries are allowing us to enter easily. And that will only happen that we have some sort of diplomatic relation, we have some sort of global trust present. It clearly reflects credibility, it reflects security, reputation, it reflects bilateral relations. Another huge significance that comes from these passport rankings is the economic significance. We cannot take out this importance because it contributes to our country money-wise. Why? Because when we are talking about easier mobility, you have to also think about how it facilitates travel, how it helps trade, how it helps in building business, and how it also helps investment. If the access is restricted, if our trust is limited, then all the benefits that we can get, they will also be limited. And another significance of this ranking is associated with the very fact that it signals that how you have used up your soft power and how you are portraying your image. In this context, it's very simple that how exactly our world sees us in terms of internal things such as governance, in terms of things such as migration risk, in terms of things such as following and complying with international norms. And this will be the very rankings which will ensure that there is facilitation to movement of skilled labor, there is movement of students, and also better research collaboration. The countries performing poorer on this passport index would not be able to gain advantage of globalization and labor mobility and human capital that comes along with it. And most importantly, this is the report card which tells if there is requirement of changes in visa policy, if there is requirement to negotiate travel agreements, if we need to improve border compliance or anything at all. When we are talking about this passport index, it just does not show passport strength, but everything that comes with it. Because when we are talking about passport strength, it functions as a composite proxy indicator of not just our geopolitical standing, but also our economic integration and as well as global trust. Now on this note, we will be looking into the last dimension in the session. Last dimension, that what does this tell us about our passport power, this passport index. This does not just talk about passport strength, because we just understood what is the significance of this ranking. So it is not just about the number of countries the access is easier. It also shows that how we have been performing in diplomatic relations, security concerns, migration pattern and bilateral agreements. So a country climbing on the rankings is important because it shows that how it is placed in a global landscape in multiple dimensions, not just in terms of access. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.